Hi, I'm Brian Maddox, and welcome to another episode of the Consulting Trap. With me today is Wendell Jordan from Jordan Marketing Consultants. Welcome.
Hello. How are we doing today, man?
Well, thanks. And yourself?
I am fantastic, brother.
All right. Well, fantastic, Wendell. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you get started in the digital marketing SEO space?
In the digital marketing space. So it was a pure accident. A friend of mine, I used to play basketball. He was my point guard, and he reached out to me and said, "Hey, I've been making websites. Do you want to sell them?" And I was like, "No, like that. It's not a thing, right?" So uh, he explained to me that it was, and he told me that we would be rich, right? Like he was like, "Oh man, websites sell for like $15,000, $20,000. We did it for 5 years. We never sold a $20,000 website." I'm going to give you a spoiler alert there. But I did start selling the websites. I learned a little bit about all the different things that go into building a website inside of WordPress. And the next thing him and I knew, we had a business, right? So we actually built a sales team, and eventually I learned how to do some stuff in WordPress, and then pivoted into doing it solo. Was a freelancer with a business name for a little while, and then changed that into Jordan Marketing Consultants. Now we have a team, and as of this year, we are solely an SEO agency. So that came about being tired of arguing about the subjectivity of the color of my shirt, right? Like, is it blue? Is it indigo? I just got tired of it. So SEO is easy, right? It's numbers, it's charts.
So tell me about that. Made the subjective side of the business. Is there no subjectivity in the SEO space?
I think there's subjectivity and execution, right? There's black hat, there's gray hat, there's white hat, right? Like those things can be subjective. We can argue if the thing that you think is somewhere in that gray space is really white or black. But when it comes to the reporting, when it comes to being able to drive the ball over the goal line, I don't think there is anything subjective about it, right? Like we're gonna there are lots of things that are tried and true, right? If there's certain information that just isn't on the site, we can't argue that it should or shouldn't be there. These are all standard practices. Whereas when we used to build the websites, the difficulty that we would always have would be trying to step away from it being a piece of art, right? Because there are conversion components that go into web design, but it's really hard to get a business owner to remove the personal side, right? Like them removing some of their character and personality and the things that they really enjoy about all the things on the internet, and turning it into something that's generated for the consumer. Whereas when we're dealing with SEO, we're able to, I think people are way more willing to just like stand back and watch you work when it comes to SEO. So it works. It works for us because I'm a nerd. So like I literally went to bed late last night because I fell down a rabbit hole. Like I messed around and was up way too late playing with SEO stuff.
That's cool. So I can the deep well that a lot of this tech represents is outrageously interesting. I think one of the things that really becomes challenging is knowing where all the performance levers actually are versus all of the ones that look like they should control how things work and they have no impact at all. When you start working with your clients, I think I want to understand a little bit more because I know in the SEO space, I have met, let's just say, less reputable folks in the field who will get you #1 rank on Google, right, for some obscure set of keywords in a foreign language. Now, that sounds like gray space to me. That sounds like a little bit of a mess. Help me out with this, Wendell.
So I think a story is perfect for this moment. I talked to a prospect yesterday, in fact, right? And the gentleman was explaining to me that another agency, a larger agency, I like to call them farms because they typically are not geared towards a specific client. They've got a certain list of things that they do, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what's what, same thing, everybody, right? Not how we do it. We're very hands-on and custom to the client because every industry is different, right? Every HVAC person is not going to be the same, even though it's one industry. The guy who has 1 to 3 employees versus 15 to 20 those are two different ways that they're probably looking to be found on search, right? That being said, some of that gray space goes into, and what he was explaining was he was a home service person. Some of our favorite clients, the agency had them as home services in Houston. Couldn't be more vague, right? Chicken recipes. What part of the chicken are we baking, frying? There's just so many different options. One of the things that they were proud of was how well he ranked for that obscure keyword. It's not really useful to his business. There's another part of his business that he doesn't even do or doesn't see any profit on, that he didn't really want to push on the internet. They didn't really listen to that because it's a common thing in his industry, right? For us, the execution comes into, and I say this humbly, but I've learned in working with design agencies who talk to a lot of SEOs and even some of our direct-to-consumer clients, the biggest difference with us is that customization, is being able to talk to you and understand what podcast chef needs, right? And letting you give me a little more detail about who your ideal customer is. Again, I'm based here in Houston. We service the entire country, but I like to use Houston as the example just because I understand a little bit. When someone is in the northwest side of Houston, they're not trying to travel to the southeast, right? I'm originally from New York. The boroughs are huge, right? I don't necessarily want to go from Long Island all the way out to the Bronx for a job, So being able to understand that, whereas when you start dealing with those larger agencies, or even, I shouldn't even say that, when you start dealing with agencies that have way too much of a cookie cutter approach, what ends up happening is they get so caught up in and I will call them industry standards, where every location should have a price tag, right? But it's not applicable depending on where you are in the country, right? Because that little small town that you or I live in, there's 4 towns around it. We need all of them. We can't just live on the one town. We need all 5. I can't bill you for 5 towns when the total makeup of those towns is 30,000, right? It's a totally different space. So being able to customize it based on, that specific client. I think some of those other gray spaces are when you get to that first page of Google conversation, right? I can make you the first page of Google. I can make you number 1 for your name, right? Depending on what your name is. I can put a keyword and make sure that you're number 1. I think the difference with that, though, goes into being able to understand where the money makers are, right? Some businesses are really good at understanding that, if they're an HVAC customer, they know that servicing ACs in Texas in the summertime is where their money's made, right? So we need to be pushing to make sure that the location and the service are tied together in the content that we're putting on the page.
So how many times in your experience have you been in a situation where you've done kind of your job, but the client's website's not really poised to convert, and then they say, "Wow, this didn't do anything for me"? How do you deal with those kind of situations? Because I imagine you run into that fairly regularly.
Believe it or not, we won't take them, right? So, like, if we start off, if you come to us as a prospect and we're looking at your website and it's obvious that this thing is just an amalgamation of stuff, right? I'll let you know, like, hey, you're probably going to need to redesign this before we start looking at anything we can do technical. Because in theory, some of on-page SEO is user experience, right? Because aside from all the other technical things, I've learned naming stuff, it doesn't help anyone, so I won't do it to you. But, aside from those technical things, one of the biggest parts is when someone finds you on the internet and they get to the website and there's 17 pop-ups and a bunch of other stuff going on, they're going to leave, right? So that's actually a part of our education, is making sure that the clients that we bring on have that baseline, right? Like, that's really the foundation of SEO is a proper user experience. So
that interplay between the SEO and the design for conversion, when you have to facilitate those conversations with a customer, what does that sound like? I mean, you got to run into this often enough, and it's not just like, hey, you need a new website. It's got to be a little bit more specific, right? They're not just gonna run off into the woods and be like, okay, I got a different one. Here you go. Well, help me out here. What are the things that really
Right.
matter in that part of the conversation?
Right. They picked it off a tree,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
website tree. Yeah. So sometimes it's going page by page. I mean, when and we offered SEO for years, so this isn't our first year in the SEO space.
All right.
When we first started offering SEO, one of the things that we would offer is being able to put together a wireframe for the client to be able to help them to understand, like this is where we are versus this is where we would want to be, and these are the reasons why, right? Like, going back into that subjectivity of design and being able to just explain, like, there's no call to action anywhere on this page. The thing that I learned to be able to articulate that and how to best, I guess, express it here is I've learned people enjoy analogies, right? Relatable analogies. Again, coming from New York City, everyone doesn't have a car, but everywhere else in America, people do. So using car analogies is always really good, right? And being able to explain to them that we've got this really well built machine, but we have no place to put the key. We don't have a push button to start. We have nothing, right? We have nothing to actually turn the engine on. That is one of the best ways that I found to be able to articulate that. And again, what we used to do is wireframe. Now, sometimes the conversation is bringing in some of our agency partners that actually do full service web design so that they can be a little more detailed. I think in only wearing one hat, I sometimes find it difficult to elaborate on web design now, right? Because I don't have to on a day-to-day basis. So I've kind of turned that part of my brain off. But I think the main part, I mean, I realize in talking to a web designer, right? Like she runs an agency, and we were talking about the same page, same exact website, and I'm looking at it solely from an SEO space, right? And there's certain usability things that are kind of shaky but manageable, like just minor tweaks here and there. And the things that she's seeing are completely different. And I bust out laughing, and I said, I'm looking at this solely as an SEO. Like I don't care how big the logo is. That doesn't matter to me anymore. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, so but yeah, I mean, having that conversation, it isn't go out and find a new website. It is guided. It's making sure that they understand, we do have trusted partners, one that we know will be able to execute. Sometimes, there are budgetary constraints. If there is a time where, let's say it's a smaller client, we will have the conversation of mocking up a wireframe for them and just being able to show them like, hey, this is the concept, right? We've got a couple of call to actions here. Excuse me, we have a couple of call to actions here. When the customer gets to the page, what's the main thing we want them to do? Are they able to do it on their current, with their current experience? No. Okay, well, here's some ways that we can maybe implement this a little bit differently. There are times where we do have to restructure some pages just based on SEO. So if those things happen, if we have to restructure some words, chances are we got to restructure some layout, and we still, I don't like it, but we'll do it. It's the honest truth, man. I don't like it.
So the guy who got a 5-page brochure website, 10 years ago comes at
Oh
you and
yeah,
says, "Can you SEO me?" You're going to be like, "Nah."
no, absolutely not. We cannot. Right? No, absolutely not. No,
That's awesome.
there's no way. Like what the biggest thing that I think I like to hang my hat on is I refuse to just take people's money. Right? You know, we were talking about the master class, right?
Right.
And them mastering a way for you to get your money out of your wallet, right? I try our best to not be that agency, to not be those people. We have turned people away. There are some clients there are some industries that we really enjoy. Like we don't do e-commerce, right? Because it tends to be convoluted. It tends to be a messier space, even if it was built yesterday, just because e-commerce people are as awesome as they may be. They're more often than not, they've got, way more product than they have description. They've got, way more product than they have pictures or proper pictures. So like, there's some nuances in there, unless they're already established e-commerce store that just don't align with the type of SEO, with the quality of SEO that we're looking to achieve, right? Because there's certain keywords that they need done. There's certain keywords that they need to rank for, and without that, like without those foundational pieces, it makes our job next to impossible. And like you said, once they get to the other end of our service agreement, they're looking around going, well, what did you do? Right.
So you raise an important kind of consideration. So if there are hallmarks or milestones or indicators
Sure.
Of a quality SEO, what are they? What are the top three things I would look for when SEO is doing it right?
Okay, so their name should be Wendell Jordan. That's number one, right? Number two, it should be Jordan Marketing Consultants. No. So,
Wait for it.
yeah. I thought that's what you. I thought it was an alley oop. I was dunking. So, I think big number one, and this is something that I hope every prospect that hasn't signed up with us has walked away with. Right. I try to make sure that we give them some education. Number one, if they're guaranteeing you anything, there are no guarantees in marketing as a whole, let alone SEO. There's no way for any of us to know that we are going to put you on the first page or we're going to make you number one. It is impossible to know. So if guarantees start spewing out of a SEO's mouth, they are way more into the money and way less into the SEO. I think the big number two is not giving you anything tangible, right? I think tangible is arguable, but I'll give us as an example. You know, in all seriousness, we do a 6-month commitment, so we give a timeline of what to expect over 6 months, right? Not necessarily in a change in ranking, but these are the things that we tackle over the next 30 days, and that's usually after like that. It's actually like after the first 30 days or so, because we get the data in and then we have 2 conversations with our client within the first month to be able to assess those goals. If I guess it takes me to number 3, if the SEO comes with their own set of goals, you're probably in trouble, right? Because they're not focused on your business, they're focused on their goals. It's impossible for me to walk into it and go, all right, podcast chef, I looked at your site. These are the things we're going to do to make it better. You don't have to talk, Brian. It's fine. How is that possible? Right. So if you're being guaranteed, first page, number ones, if they're not able to give you anything, and I mean, granted, the terms in SEO are weird, man. There's terms. I very jokingly say it took me years to know what a schema markup was, right? Like from when I first started in digital marketing, it took me years. I thought I knew, and then I saw something and was like, "What? That's not what this." I thought it was something different. So I get it, right? Like, but they should be able to give you some tangible things that you can search and be able to say, "Oh, okay, these are the items that SEO person said they were going to do." And then the last thing is, again, if they come to you with a plan, and again, not necessarily having no strategy is great, but I need to talk to the prospect, right? I need to talk to them once they become a client again, so that we make sure that your goal and my goal is to achieve your goal, right? The things that I do have to align with where you want to go with your business. Right. So if I come in with my own goals, I think we're already not going to align, right? Because I know the things that you need to do, and it's impossible because, again, from my own experience, I know there are some industries, there are some businesses, when you understand an industry, everyone does this, right? But some of those businesses don't. We're an SEO agency that doesn't do web design. There's web design agencies that don't do SEO. So why isn't there an HVAC that doesn't do duct cleaning? So how can I tell you that I'm going to make you number one in duct cleaning if that's not what you do? I mean, I can, right? But you'll never see a dollar from it because you don't do duct cleaning.
Right. So that getting that voice of the customer kind of information where you understand what their goals and objectives are. That's interesting. I think one of the things you run into, right? You have to run into this a couple times, I'm sure, where the customer doesn't really know what they want. They think they want one thing, and what they actually want is something else. Get me front page on Google, and what they really are looking for is lead gen opportunities or revenue growth opportunities or what have you. And those aren't the same thing, right? One might be a lever to the other. How do you? What are the common things people are asking for, and how does that translate to what you do?
So yes, the front page of Google, number one on Google, right? That is, I think, in my 10 years of being in this industry, that is the one thing that has never changed, right? No one ever comes to you and is like, I just want to be found. That never happens. Everyone wants to be on the first page. They want to be number one. I think the thing that that we've learned to be able to unearth when talking to a client about that goal is like what you just described. So I very rarely do you meet a business that doesn't want to have more revenue, right? Like that's not usually a thing. But it's understanding. So like, I want to generate more revenue in 2023. Awesome. Me too. What is the number one ticket right now? Right now, these are all a part of when you're still in the prospecting phase with us. So if you can't put those kind of things together, if you can't articulate those kind of things, I know that you may be either there's someone else that's maybe helping you that we need to bring into this conversation, or and because we deal with smaller business, you may be so new into your business that I'm not saying SEO can't help you, but we can't help you because we got to we need you to understand who is or what services or what customers are the ideal in order for us to be able to centralize our efforts onto those people. So if you're still muddling through that, I'll being fair, that's not what I do, right? Like I'm not the person who's yeah, like I can't dive into your business and figure that kind of stuff out for you.
Right.
That's not a part of of the hats I wear.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. I think it's interesting though. You get into these situations where, um, folks will ask you for things like, "Oh yeah, I want front page of Google," or "Oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to grow the business," but you ask them how, or you ask them where, like what part of your business are you looking to grow,
Right.
or what service offering are you bringing to the table, or tell me a little bit more about that, your ideal client profile, and they give you anybody with a pulse and a check, and
Oh man.
those are not the clients that
No.
SEO is going to work well for. The
No.
more specific, the
No.
better, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think, and again, I always try to be fair. When I was having a conversation with the prospect yesterday, I told him, this isn't about bashing that other agency. It's about understanding that, I'm never ashamed of it. I'm competitive, right? So I like to believe that we do a good job. I like to believe, or at least the clients reinforce that. But I like to believe that we do things differently, and I do believe better. And I think you will find SEOs who are willing to take on those tasks. But I don't think that you'll be able to find a tangible way to identify the goal at the end, right? Um, one of my like exceptions to the rule is one of our clients who was off the chart, right? Like they were no keyword was in the top 100. Okay, metrics don't go past 100, right? Like just for reference, there's no metric past 100. I'm a big guy. I used to be bigger. There's nothing better than when you're on one of those analog scales and it circles around, right? Like that means trouble. That's where we were. We were completely off the scale. So we in a recent conversation, we're now not only on the chart, but we're average position about 60. Doesn't sound great, but it's an amazing feat from going from not being in the race at all, right? So being able to even have those kind of conversations with a client, and again, that specific client was an exception, not the rule. Having those kind of conversations with a client is different, right? Like we're not gonna sugarcoat it and tell you about how your branded keyword, which is your name in search, is number one. That's cool, right?
It's also
It should be.
outrageously easy to do.
Yeah, right. It should be. But the ones that are your money makers, right? And the ones that are specific to the ways that you earn your revenue, we're now in a place where you're actually generating traffic to the site, even though you're at the 60th average position, right? So then average being there's a couple that are a little higher, a couple that are a little lower, but you know, having that conversation with a client, I think is important, right? Because everyone's not going to start off on page two. There are some people when you get into the weeds with them and you are now knee deep in the second report, right? Your third cup of coffee, and you're looking and you're like, they told me, and this is another great one. I did some SEO, right? Like that's, I worked on this before I talked to you, but my other phrase I love. I know just enough to be dangerous. It's good. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means. But these are the things I hear. And we get to the site and it's like, this is dangerous, all right. You know, like that's my thought. On the inside, I'm like, yeah, this is dangerous. You're dangerous. Dangerously close to the edge. So, you know, those are all the things though I think that are important. Like when you're working with an SEO, if because it's not all fun. It's not. It's not all. Everybody doesn't start off close enough for the first page to even be a part of the conversation. But
Right.
once we did our initial auditing and stuff, that was literally the first conversation I had with this client was, listen, your average position is out of 100, right? Like you got the 2 dashes on our report. So this is our goal is to get you within the 100 first, right? Then we can start talking about top 50, top 30, so forth and so on.
Right.
But we're not going from out of 100 to top 10. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen that fast, right? Like that's not a real thing. So,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and the client was willing and they were ecstatic about their jump in the 60s, right? Like, you know, as they should be. I think that's an awesome thing, right? But yeah, I mean, it's not all fun. So yeah, like you gotta be willing to have the tough conversations. Like, hey, your website, your 5-pager, that's not responsive. Is not going to work here, my friend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Wendell, we're running up against the window here on time, and I want to ask you a couple quick questions. So one, who should reach out to you? You know, who should be seeking you out, and how should they get a hold of you? See, now this is that chance. This is your moment.
Well, again, I'm a consummate clown, so I was actually going to say anybody with a pulse, anyone breathing, right?
Nice. Anybody with a pulse and willing to write a check. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Care of no. We really enjoy small business, right? And small business for us is any business where the business owner is the primary decision maker, right? Like we cannot go through the director's secretary's cousin. We can't do it. It's a long, arduous process, and SEO is long enough. Those that are in the home services industry, roofing, plumbing, electricians, HVAC, pest control. We do some work in the mental health space. Small businesses that are focused on a location, right? So we've got some that are in New York City. We have some that are out in Seattle. I have some that are here in Houston. Those are some of our favorite clients, the ones who are tired of, to go back to that home services reference, the home service person who is tired of having to travel across town to make their money, right? Like they'd much rather be within a certain locality, right? Maybe within 20, 30 miles of their home, you know, their base office, and get as much money as they can in that location. That's the person that we love working with.
And how should they get a hold of you?
There's a million ways. LinkedIn is the best. I think LinkedIn is our most common way of talking to prospects. It gives you an opportunity to look at some of the content. We actually put out a lot of SEO tips and tricks over the last few months, right? So you can actually go get some free stuff if you go to Jordan Marketing Consultants LinkedIn, or you check out my LinkedIn. You get a lot of free stuff. Yeah, that's the best way to reach out to us is via LinkedIn.
And in your journey, what are the 3 biggest things you picked up along the way?
3 biggest things. And you warned me.
You warned
me that this was the question. And I'm still just as like, it's so hard. It's difficult. The 3 biggest things. The big number 1 is don't be afraid to hire, right? And delegate. Do it early. And don't think that you need to make a certain amount of money to do it, right? Like you can't make the money without the delegation. I think that's big number 1. Number 2, niche down, because it took me years to realize that being a web design agency wasn't what I wanted to do. So niche down and be okay with it, right? Don't worry about the money left on the table. We actually do better as an SEO agency than we did as a web design agency. And the last thing is, don't be afraid to be yourself, right? Like I tell people this is my work outfit, right? Like, this is it. We don't do dress shirts. I'm me. Don't be afraid to be you in your business. I think that personality is something that gets lost as we grow, whatever style or type of business it is. Make sure that your personality is in there, right? Even if people tell you you're bland, put some blandness in there, man. Throw it in there. It'll be good.
That's awesome. I appreciate that, Wendell. It has been just a pleasure. And
Yes,
definitely
sir.
keep in touch with us and let us know how things are moving along. Maybe we'll have you
Definitely.
back on the show to get an update from you in a year or two.
Yes, sir. Oh, a year or two. Wow. Okay.
Or both.
Okay.
We could do both.
Or both, right? A year and two. Yes.
That's right. I like that.
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Consulting Trap. If you have suggestions for future episodes or would like to be a guest on our show, please send me an email at brian@podcastchef.com. That's BRIAN at podcastchef.com. Before we go, we'd like to thank the sponsor of our show, Podcast Chef. Podcast Chef helps turn ordinary podcasting into a revenue-generating lead magnet for your consulting business. Our Podcasting Done For You service takes away the headache of starting up and running your own podcast. Reach out now to take advantage of our 30-day money-back guarantee. Visit us at podcastchef.com to find out how our team of experts can help you leverage podcasting to take your business to the next level.